the only safety for the conquered is to hope for no safety. Virgil. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Full Metal Cast. And despite having my thoughts gathered for what I really wanted to go over this week, last week, I wanted to make sure that this stood as its own episode given the severity of the topic. Therefore, I kept the Halloween episode light and free of the heavier stuff that I'm going to bring up here so that I could do this justice. Now, the tragedy that unfolded in Maine is the primary reason why I felt so compelled to make an episode about this, as everybody has already thrown their 2 cents in, regardless of knowledge or experience. So let's tackle this first. Once again, despite what headlines and politicians shout, this is not another instance supporting the claim that we have a gun violence epidemic in America. What this is another offensively obvious failing by the state to keep you safe. For everyone's sake, I won't break down every single law that the shooter violated in carrying out his act. After all, everyone knows that it is illegal to kill people, and yet he still went on his rampage. What I do want to highlight, though, is the fact that the shooter was committed to a mental institution this year, the summer of this year, for hearing voices in his head telling him to shoot up the National Guard building, and the state was very much aware of this fact as it was included in the active shooter notice sent out by the Maine State Police. So once again, another mentally ill individual who was very much on law enforcement's radar went on a killing spree, and I have no doubt we will see additional proof of incompetence by the state as more information comes out, so long as it is not suppressed, like the manifesto of the mentally ill trans shooter from Nashville. But how, though, could a government so obsessed with the alleged threat that guns pose turn a blind eye to a firearms instructor who was committed to a mental hospital for hearing voices telling him to carry out a mass shooting? Is it negligence or just a natural outcome from the terms of the agreement citizens of the United States have entered into? Well, as of today, it has been made known to us that the Maine Police Department visited the shooter at his home 6 weeks before the shooting over concerns that he would snap and carry out a mass shooting. And, if that wasn't enough, the FBI was made aware of the threat that he posed but couldn't locate him. Now, maybe if they weren't so busy randomly putting holds on Form 4 applications like my own, spying on parents at school board meetings, or arresting old ladies for exercising their First Amendment rights, and if they also weren't so busy shooting dogs with their ATF brothers, they might have had the resources available to actually find this guy. So which is it? Negligence or exactly what we paid for? I say that they are one in the same. And with gun laws only expanding throughout history and civilian access to firearms only contracting as both federal and state representatives race to be the most restrictive in the name of political clout, you cannot say we have a gun problem in this country unless you are insane by literal definition. There's not a single law or government agency that can prevent such acts from being carried out. The fact that the very act we're talking about took place is proof of this. How many laws and government agencies that exist for our safety failed to do what they were designed to do, and as a result, 18 people paid the ultimate price? Let's zoom out for a second, though, and take a look at Israel, since that's another hot current event that's unfolding in front of our very eyes. I specifically want to look at when they declared a state of war most recently. How could a country so familiar with conflict, who has the most sophisticated missile defense system on the planet, and who has such a robust information network centered around intelligence gathering on their neighbors, who they clash with constantly, allow men on rudimentary paragliders to swoop in and slaughter teens and young adults at a music festival? Rhetorical question, of course, as it is insane to believe that the state can prevent and keep you safe from such things. but that is the very facade they put so much effort into upholding, as their entire existence depends on it. If you just pay your taxes, obey every rule, and vote, and just do your part to be a good little citizen, the state will keep you safe. And that is how the vast majority of people think today, though, because it is just so convenient to buy into this concept with how we live our lives. People feel like they simply do not have the time and would rather outsource their health, their safety, etc. After all, what has school and society told us our entire lives? Go to school, get a job, get a house, get married, have kids, the American dream. And those milestones haven't gotten any easier for the rest of us, has it? So when faced with the prospect that we also have to make sure we are not robbed, harmed, or killed while living paycheck to paycheck, it isn't hard to imagine that most people wouldn't be able to come to terms today. Therefore, we have trusted the state to hold a monopoly on violence in the name of keeping us safe. However, their record isn't a winning one. In fact, they're not even breaking even. And every mass shooting, every crime, etc. represents another failure on their part, contributing to an alarming losing record in a sport where the consequence could be your life. But back to Israel, though. Their government very quickly realized they could not keep up this facade in the face of a coordinated enemy, and the headline, which caught the attention of several renowned gun tubers that was shared at the start of the conflict, "Israel to allow citizens to arm themselves," may sound reasonable and like a great thing for those outside of the gun and freedom community. But for us within, we all read that as Israel does too little, too late. Now, do I believe those attending the music festival would have donned full kit with ARs if they had the right to do so to begin with? No, probably not. Not even in a country so familiar with conflict. Do I think at least a few might have had pistols on them or weapons in their cars? Maybe. However, that's not the point I'm trying to make here. My point is that just the thought of an armed population is an incredible deterrent. Once again, look at every victim targeted by mass shooters, or any criminal for that matter. They will choose softer targets 10 out of 10 times, people who are unarmed, not expecting to be a victim. And criminals will carry out their acts when they have an opportunity to do so with minimal optics and interference, i.e. at night, with no or few cameras around, within gun-free zones, etc. It is simply common sense why violent actors make such choices. Now, to sort of take a step back here, I'm not saying Hamas would have simply turned the paragliders around should they have seen that the crowd was armed. Conflict in the Middle East goes way deeper than just mentally ill individuals and criminals, but the festival goers would have been in an objectively and statistically safer environment if there were people present who were armed and proficient with the tools they carry. And to bring things back on the home front here, if we were to take the words of our representatives and the news that mass shootings are on the rise, even though we've already proven they're not, as definitions to terms have been changed to meet certain narratives, but pretending that we do actually believe and trust them, how can anyone possibly think more regulation and agencies would help, given that they have only been on the rise as well? How does that trend make any sense? You would have to literally be insane to believe that more of the same would change the trajectory we're already on. Allow me, however, to introduce another trend, though, that has sort of been shoved in front, or shoved behind the straw man known as the gun problem. Mental health has been left to rot in this country while your representatives chase the clout associated with the fight for gun control, and both sides indeed benefit via votes, donations, and TV airtime. It is much easier to fight over one thing, especially when said thing is a physical object, i.e. a gun. It is exponentially harder to attack mental illness and mental health as a whole, given the number of ailments that fall under that umbrella and a pharmaceutical industrial complex that has crippled our ability to adequately treat people. Also, have you peeped the resume of those in office lately? They are far from experts or qualified in anything. They simply won the world's least transparent popularity contest by having the most money. So therefore, out of convenience and incompetence, we have a gun problem. And I would only expect the current trend to continue. More government overreach, followed by more crime, and the cycle continues, like it has been, unfortunately. Insanity consuming all as people cry for more restrictions in the name of safety, expecting different results, only to pay greater prices again and again, because it's the voices that mass shooters, like the one in Maine, hear in their head, go unaddressed, getting louder and more disturbing. Waking up, snapping out of it, and breaking the cycle, in this case, is realizing that the preservation of your natural rights cannot be outsourced adequately if you value your life at any level. No man, group of men, or piece of paper can ever stand in your place when your rights are on the line. Phrases like, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself, and my body, my choice, ring true. No matter how daunting it may seem to make choices and investments towards your safety and sustainment, it is no different than doing anything for the first time, like going to the gym, learning an instrument, playing a new sport, starting a new job, etc. You get my point. You make the jump, you start day one, and you continue learning and improving inch by inch, day by day. Slowly, you will realize that there really is nothing more important in life than your natural rights and enjoying the beauty in this world through them. There is no greater purpose than preserving that lifestyle, and, logically, it would make sense that you would not entrust such a task to anyone but yourself. Despite this, statists and gun control activists remain ranking members of the cult of comfort. And this is a term that has been growing in popularity, and I do not wish to detract from others using it. So when I simply refer to the cult of comfort, I am simply invoking the easy-to-believe lie that the state can/will keep you safe, regardless of stats, science, history, reputation, and our collective understanding of human behavior. Individual rights will always take a backseat to majority rule for those too afraid to face reality. They leave their decision-making to the masses, but the problem with this mindset is that you lack conviction. You believe in nothing as you sacrifice your natural rights, the very thing that sets you apart from every other living thing on earth, just so you can feel a false sense of safety and comfort. These are the useful idiots to the state, the indoctrinated supporters who will defend their political parties at all costs, no matter how wrong they are. And what's tragic is that they will go their entire lives living this way until it's too late. They will scream, protest, and riot as the people around them are robbed, beaten, and shot by the very people the state promised to protect them from. But at the end of the day, even these people even after they've sacrificed all of their rights on the altar of state-sponsored safety, they are indeed protected by guns. Not their own, of course, nor to an adequate degree, obviously, but in order to subscribe to the cult of comfort, they acknowledge, consciously or not, that the state threatens death as punishment for those who step out of line. And if they protest this fact, then they must welcome the type of violent rule seen on the West Coast and in cities like Chicago, where they are left with no recourse when they are deemed prey by the mentally ill and those lacking a moral compass. In which case, it should be abundantly clear that the cult and its leaders fail to measure up. So what are we to do? Well, the only choice civilians have is whether or not we would allow the preservation of our natural rights, our lives, and the lives of our loved ones to be outsourced. Should I choose to outsource such a task to the state, I accept a life of constant outrage, begging for more taxes, regulation, and oversight in my life, as crime will continue to be carried out and people like myself victimized, as history and stats have proven. Should I choose responsibility and accountability, I take that what is most important to me and keep it within my sphere of control as much as I am able to. I do not waste my breath yelling at politicians, unless it's for fun, or stressing about that which is out of my control, as I have done and will do everything possible to bring about the desired outcome should an emergency arise. How stoic. And this brings us to a bit of a harrowing image. A group of people at a sporting event, in church, at school, at a concert, sitting in traffic, etc. Have they chosen to defend that which is most precious in their lives? Or have they sold their soul, that which makes them human, with the belief that in their greatest moment of need, should it tragically come about, a representative of the state will happen to be present and competent enough to deliver the protection they paid such a heavy price for. Now, in both scenarios, whether they chose to outsource or not, the worst possible outcome is identical. However, the benefits are skewed immeasurably should people place any value at all on their lives. And that's how I'm going to conclude it today. Think about that, really reflect on that, and take inventory on the rights you have left, on the rights that you value, and what is your purpose on this earth. Stay metal.